Vielen Dank. Welcome. It was a long day for you and for me and all of us, so I tried to make it as entertaining as possible. I try to be in time. I hope all the demos work, but let's give it a shot. And anytime if you have any questions, so please feel free to use the thingy, eventy. You get more and more points, and then I don't know what happens tomorrow, but probably it's not bad to have points, I guess, they say. A short introduction for the people who don't know me. I'm here for a couple of years now, so it's my 18th OSMC. We started as an Argus conference, just to be fair enough at this point. And since we gave our first talk after the fork, I'm doing this. Yeah, what I'm talking about today is a little bit of security stuff. So important in that way that I would like to mention at least upgrade to this releases if you don't have to. So what happened in the web, in the modules area, what we did in Kubernetes, Icinga for Windows some. Christian unfortunately was not able to give a talk this year, probably next year. And I've heard he has a lot of plans already upcoming. Notifications, Icinga director, a lot of things did not happen in the last 2 years. We didn't have a lot in the OSMC talk. This year we have. And of course about AI, because it has to be in a talk nowadays that we talk about AI. Of course, whatever that means. Anyone here who has no idea what Icinga is? Okay. It's too late for serious questions. So I guess all of you have kind of an idea that don't have a real introduction about Icinga. We do infrastructure monitoring. So our claim is pretty much we monitor your entire infrastructure. We have different disciplines we do this, like automation stuff, cloud monitoring, notification, metrics and logs, and analytics. I don't talk about all of these things we do. There's a lot of on the website, Blarim and the marketing team is investing a lot of time and did a lot of rework on the Icinga website in the last months. So even I learned a lot in the last weeks, looking deeper in all the material we have. Though, if you have some time, probably not now because I need all the wireless capacity to check out the website and what we have there. Take a look. Of course, we have successful Icinga customers. Probably you also have like unsuccessful Icinga customers, but I don't have a slide for them. Came up yesterday that we of course have them, but customers I have every year. And what is interesting, I just would like to, and the QR code perhaps doesn't help you so much, but also there's under Icinga company customers, there's a website where we explain in detail what these customers do with Icinga, often in help with our partners like Bernd IT in this case, for RTL2, which is a German television channel. Everyone in German knows this, outside probably not. Also with Wordline, which is a payment provider. There's a customer story which is really interesting. BTC, they are also here. I don't know if there's anyone from BTC here. Yeah, welcome. They do a lot with Icinga for many years, and also Systemvertrieb Alexander, SVA. And last but not least, Döhler, which is, who knows what Döhler does? Not reading this. Is anyone from Döhler here? No. It's because I looked into it, and it's a super interesting company because they do food ingredients, and there's pretty much nothing you eat or drink where none of their products is in. It's crazy. So they make a lot of drink and natural food ingredients for energy drinks, and it's crazy how much stuff they do. It's just like one of the hidden champions we have in Germany, and it's really interesting. It's not part of the talk, of course, to look deeply into what Döhler does, but if you have some time after the evening event and after Pontiki, go to your hotel room, check out what Döhler is doing. It's just crazy how specialized they are on a very specific topic it is part of the food and beverage industry. It's really interesting. So I would highly encourage you to look at Döhler, look at what they have done with Icinga, but also the company is really cool. And again, what I mentioned before, check out Icinga.com company customers, where you find all of this and many more we did in the last years, and we continue doing them in the future. So coming to the security updates, and this is something I would at least encourage you to do this. We know that we have our users and customers have like a broad band of installations, still have IDO installed and working on production. So there's a very different level of versions we have with the customers, but it's really important We had a security release, and most of them, there are more details on the blog, what they fixed. Mostly that users were able to read something they shouldn't be able to read. Let's make it in the short term. So it's super important. I would highly encourage use the packages, update to the server. We also try to backput it to all the main branches we had in the past. So definitely, please update this. Also, we had a lot for Core DB Web and Icinga. And there's a really cool blog post, perhaps you can write down the URL, where all this is mentioned in detail. So when I saw this blog post, I was thinking about our SEO team. It's like, hell, nobody will find that blog post. But making it easier, here's the QR code, or probably, again, write it down. And the main topic, if you took that away from this, is please make sure you at least update to the versions of your Icinga installation, which has the security bug fixes in it. Coming to the core monitoring stuff, I'm not going into all the detail, lucky for you, what happened in all these different versions. What is important, that we need these two versions for the dependency stuff. So if you would like to use this, you at least need to upgrade to Icinga 2 version 2.15 and Icinga DB 1.4 to make use of this, because this core parts are important. And also, if we're talking about the modules, I'm pretty sure not every one of you is using all the modules, but if you're, for instance, using the Jira integration, it's important that you update because you need it for Jira Cloud. So Jira Cloud made an API change. So who's using the Jira module? Some? Okay, you 3 people here, please update to this version. Are you using Jira Cloud? Okay, then nobody needs it, but anyway, I mentioned it. So you all, perhaps if you use Jira Cloud in the future, you know at least there's something you need to update. You never know who is interested in a specific topic. Icinga for Windows, more or less Christian's baby. There was a version 1.13. There was a lot of improvements in the plugin performance. There's a new plugin for the Internet Information Server, IIS. Certificate handling has changed, and also in the API communication. There's a blog post about it. And what Christian told me yesterday, that there will be an Icinga version 1.14 in December. There's a new Hyper-V plugin in there. There's a cache update, which, if I understand it correctly, now like disks which are removed or added to the system are now still in the old cache, and this is going to be cleaned up now. And also, if you hit by one of these topics and this is interesting for you, check out our blog on a regular basis. I don't know what December really means. Probably will be the Sylvester, I don't know, New Year's Eve, whenever Christian is going to do it, but it will be there in the next weeks. Dependencies in Icinga Web. So who is using host dependencies in Icinga? How do you visualize them in Icinga Web? Not really, because there was no visualization so far. Means it's a pretty new feature. We have it for a couple of years, that we have host dependencies, but there was no chance to visualize it. And this has changed. So in the newest version, we have a native dependency view where we can see relation between host and child objects, and your configured host-to-host relationships are viewable in the UI, and you can also list the affected children visibility. And to give you just a really short demo on how that looks like, I try to. Demo God. The problem is I need my glasses. I have to accept that I'm getting old, and okay, I don't do it for you, I do it for me. What? Bigger monitor? No, I give up. Yeah. Thanks for nothing. Just a small example, because it was not there in the past, that you see these host-child relationship in the web interface, and you could it's just a pretty example that you see directly in the overview, and also in the detail now, you have all the affected objects, which is cool if you use these relationships right now and we're just not able to visualize it. And also, you can hear, which is our 2 new tabs. We have the parent and child, of course, which are not so interesting here. And if you go down, you can also see the root cause analysis, like traversaling up all the service or host dependencies you have in Icinga. You can see them at the bottom, which is the root cause of your outage. So with that, it makes way more sense perhaps to have dependencies. Now they, of course, have an impact on the notification and check logic, but also to visualize them in a better way or visualize them somehow was required for many years. So it's just, if you have this, totally makes sense to use it. You want to ask something? Okay, cool. That's it. Coming to Icinga for Kubernetes. Who is using this? And I have to go to the next slide before this comes up. Who is using Kubernetes? This is like it's a minority still. Okay, Icinga for Kubernetes, what it does. So aside to the known host and service logic, and I talked about this a lot last year and I guess the year before, that we put all our efforts to integrate like new architecture and don't put it in the host service semantic. So we put models aside where we reflect the architecture and the objects a specific architecture has. Like Kubernetes has workers, and perhaps you can see it as nodes, or hosts, but also have a lot of other resources like deployments and pods and replica groups and all this, which is not easy to match them in a host service structure. So we put these modules aside, which we started with and will continue with all the other modules which are not bound to these host service center in the future, and visualize them in a way that you can understand them. So how that works, the architecture is pretty simple, I guess. There's a Kubernetes somewhere. There's a daemon who queries the Kubernetes API on a regular basis, writes that stuff into the database, and that gets visualized in Icinga Web. Going deeper from the technical components, which is also important that this is not part of the Icinga 2 core, so it's a component aside to the Icinga core. There's a web module like PHP, our whole framework is in PHP. There's a Go daemon, and there's a database which stores all the values. And these are the components which are required. So what's new in it? We have multi-cluster support now for Kubernetes. We have a notifications integrations that you can directly send your Kubernetes events to Icinga notifications. We have, and that was something, I don't know who it was, but a person after the last talk said, if you have all this in Icinga, you can use the authorization system of Icinga and create filters on specific user groups that they are able, for instance, to just have a look on specific namespaces, labels, and annotations. It's in there now, so you can restrict access to specific parts of your Kubernetes installations to a specific user group. And also you can favor your specific deployments on the landing screen. And how that looks, I show you now. Let's go back to the web. So first of all, if you go to the landing screen, we have a more easier way to approach it. We have our cluster services here, which now there's one cluster configured. Now you can have like multiple servers configured side by side. Can you read it? Yeah, no, yeah, yes, no. Maybe better, kind of. So you have this one cluster in the system. We go down to deployments. You see all the deployments on the server. And first of all, it gives you a very detailed overview what is in a specific deployment, what groups are in there, how many replicas should be available, if there's rolling, and all that stuff, the details. And if you go, let's say we go to this Nginx deployment, you also have the same dependency module where you see, I don't know, why don't I see it? Here's it. You see the environment dependencies of these Kubernetes deployment. So you get an idea that you have a Kubernetes deployment, you get a replica set, you can drill down and see the pods which are part of this replica set and can drill down your whole infrastructure until at some point you reach a specific container. I clicked it twice. And you can really drill down until you end up into a container. And if there would be log files, they would be here. Probably I took the wrong demo host, but I think you can imagine that you can drill down from the deployment, even if you don't have an idea how your Kubernetes infrastructure works, and I think this is a high similarity chance that you have no clue how it works, because most of the people don't know how it works, then it makes easy to visualize and get an idea, because Icinga creates that abstraction of all these different components from Kubernetes and put them together. What you can also do if you have a lot of deployments, you can just, it's a small thing, you can favor these deployments and put them on a landing screen. So if you just have specific things you are interested in on a regular basis and want to go down all the resources all the time, or perhaps you have the idea that these worker groups or this replica set runs into issues all the time, you can just favor it, have it easily on your Icinga entry screen. Also, because just I would like to show you how that is working, we go to, where are we going? Application. We go to access control. No, that was the wrong thing. Hold on. I don't give up. Yeah, but I'm blind. Access control, yoo-hoo. There's just a very simple, I'm always working as root and administrator, of course. You have these, you have a Kubernetes restriction. So what you can do, you can create different roles which just have access to specific Kubernetes components, if that makes sense. So they are able to watch specific deployments, namespaces, labels, annotations. And so if you are required in your organization that not everybody has full access to the whole Kubernetes stuff to get monitored, you can do it there in a pretty simple way. That's it. I hope I haven't forgotten anything. Let's go back. I know it's a lot of material, but I hunt you through. Oh, okay. More resources about it. There's a webinar, Icinga for Kubernetes. I guess Blarim and Eric did it. You can find it here. There's a blog post giving you an introduction about it. And there will be an Icinga for Kubernetes 040 later this week. I don't know if there will be tomorrow, but probably at the end of the week, we're gonna have the new release for Icinga for Kubernetes. Any questions so far? Yes, I don't know if that, yeah. Please do me the favor.
No? Okay.
Yeah, take some time.
Do you already integrated the monitoring of persistent volume claims? How much space is in my persistent volume claim class, for example, when I have, I don't know, some kind of storage backend working in my infrastructure? Because this is something in Kubernetes where we actually having a problem right now. We know they are claiming some storage, but we have no clue how much storage is left there. And that was still missing in the Kubernetes add-on so far.
I know what a PBC is, but I have to forward that question to Eric. Pardon? It's still missing.
Do it.
Thanks for your support. No, but you're right. There was another question, I guess, in the back. Making a little bit more interactive at this time of the day.
You just showed this favorite thing for favoriting host. Will that come to the other Icinga parts too? So they can favorite the host, favorite the service, and they will show up in my favorites?
To be honest, probably not the same way, but which is something I have later on, that we are going to rework the whole dashboarding in the future. So the whole dashboard concept will be new, and we're working on that, which I have later on the slides, and that could be a part of it. Honestly, there's, as far as I know, there's no design how that will look like, but I can imagine, because what people do now, they create their own filters on the objects they're interested in and put it to the dashboard, which is kind of the same thing, but filters probably work different, especially if you're just like interested for a specific object for a day, because you know you get struggles in the morning. It would make totally sense to do it. I think it's doable. I don't know if we have it on the roadmap right now, but I guess it would be an interesting feature for the new dashboards.
Cool.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Thank you. I guess not now. That's okay. I continue. Okay, you have it already. Notifications. Who is using the new notifications part of Icinga? Christian, this is like, thank you, but you are working with us. Okay, you're working in sales, to be honest, but well. No, yeah, no, I know you're very deep into the technical parts, way better than other people. So Christian is the only one? Okay, thanks, Christian. But anyhow, there's something to win, right? Because if all of you would use it already, then I can skip the next slides. I 800 slides for this. No, it's like 700. So the question is, are you using it? And thanks to Christian, one is using it already. Anyhow, we know it's difficult because we know that we have, and this is not something related to Icinga notifications, but we know that innovation is sometimes hard because people want a lot of innovation, and we also would like to have more innovation in some parts, but people definitely want not something else is gone, because they use this for 20 years and they have their rules and their tooling around custom scripts and everything. So we know it's hard also for people still making the move from Icinga IDO to Icinga DB. For some people it's like challenging or just perhaps not required. And I guess it will take some time for us to convince you to use Icinga notifications, and we definitely work on it to make it easier for you and also giving you an advantage using Icinga notification. So what it is now, we try to have everything which is related to notifications in one single spot. So we have a simplified context management, which also has now an API where you can create your contacts and get it out of your Active Directory, LDAP, or whatever you use for your contact management. You can apply escalation rules, you can assign teams to specific stuff, and you can also define channels and recipients. So how that works, just a short overview. And the most important thing to understand is that notifications no longer go through the Icinga core to gonna be sent out, which was now the approach you do if you do the, let's say, traditional or classic approach to send out notifications. You in some way have to create like virtual checks or whatever to get a check result in Icinga and send out the notification coming out of the Icinga core. And in the future, all these components are planned to be stand side by side. So Icinga 2, which is responsible for the traditional, classic, legacy, whatever you name it, monitoring like hosts and services, will send out their information out to Icinga notifications. Certificates, Kubernetes, business process, and all the stuff we have will send their events to Icinga notifications, that we have like a central place and a central ruling about what we can do with these events and create incidents out of this. So what's new? We reworked the UI in some corners, so we heavily worked with users and the community to figure out what they need, what is not working right now. We have an enhanced filter method, which I show you later on the contacts API, and we have a time zone support, which is very interesting for larger organizations which have like follow the sun or different time zones where their people on duty are working in to get that visualized. And I give you a short demo how that looks like. If you go to notifications, so you see these incidents, and first of all, you see that we have these incidents, we have the data from Kubernetes coming into it. I mentioned it earlier that with the newest releases, this support is in there. So also, Icinga for Kubernetes sends all the events to the notification module that you can create your notification logic out there, and you're not required to in some way create a virtual host or service check. So the first thing. We have all the events coming in here from the traditional other approach, and we have here the configuration. And one thing which is important, so if you create a schedule, first of all, you can define in which time zone this schedule is gonna happen, which is important if you have that requirement. And another thing came into it, we just have one schedule in there that you see, and I hope you get the basic concept of Icinga notifications, that you have different rotations which can override each other. So we have, in this example, you have Brandon Cooper, which is the poor guy, which is on duty the whole week, and then the next week someone else is responsible for it. But during the day, other peoples are working in the office, and then they overlap the responsibility of Brandon Cooper in that example. And you can also add other rotations. And what you can do with the time zone, you can just you can put yourself in the perspective of the other time zone. So if you now, unfortunately, we don't live at the American Cayman Islands, but if you would there, you can see what impact has a changing of that configuration rule in that time zone. If that makes sense for you, then super cool. If you say, what? Perhaps you never needed this. but I think it's interesting for larger organizations, and most of our users are larger organizations with infrastructure spread over the world, and they need such a feature where they can see notifications in different time zones. Another thing is we create a ruling about that. We have the filter logic. So we have event rules here, and I think you know what this is. And also, because it was previously not so easy to do it, we have a new event rule. So we just say, I don't know, Leonard, OSMC demo, go on Icinga DB. You know we still love you. Ah, come here. We worked together for so many years, and this year he left us, but not really, because he's always coming back. And that's pretty nice to have you around all the time, sweetheart. Like a heavy cold, he comes back all the time, and there's no real medicine. Okay, sorry, I lost track. What I'm gonna do, I'm gonna create a new event rule with Leonard, and you have the filter targets in there. So this was, I think I did the wrong thing. Let's go a different way, because we wanna see Kubernetes. And depending on the source you have different objects in the rule. So we have like deployments, for instance, and you say there's a name, and then there's an Nginx deployment, and then you can give it a severity. I don't know, severity is larger than warning, and then choose that Bernd, the poor person who is on duty all the time, gets an email. And also, you can create other rules, like you did before, like an incident age. You can make an escalation. So if the responsible person didn't react for a couple of minutes or hours, you escalate it to another one. But the most important thing to show you that Icinga notification has a clue about the event sources. So Icinga notifications and calls back what resources are there, so you can query them and really have a live view on the deployments, on the namespaces, on the worker nodes which are in Kubernetes, and you can create the rule set specifically on these objects. So that's, I guess it's the most important takeaway of this. Okay, moving on. There's way more resources about Icinga notification. I think this is a very highly mentioned topic on our blog post, blog. So probably use the search on the website, which will be way better to look about it, but just you get an idea. We have a lot about custom channels, how the escalation, how the event rules are working, how you can work with desktop alerts and custom sources. So at the end, all the different sources we have in the Icinga ecosystem, and also other things you have. So we also would like to be able to bring you generic alerts you created somewhere, like your cron job is broken or whatever you have in mind, and use the same notification logic and have it in one dashboard and be like your central notification hub. So what's next? Today, so the packages are tagged and it's gonna be deployed now, soon, I don't know, later. Is Icinga notification 0.2.0, notification swap, which is like the web module for it, and also Icinga DB and Icinga DB Web. There's a new version coming out today. So definitely take a chance, read through this, what's in there. And also, there will be a webinar about all this in February next year. So please subscribe to our newsletter, of course, that we can notify you about the webinar, and would be super thankful if you do it. Thank you very much. Automation. We're coming to Director. Who's using Icinga Director? The same amount of the Icinga notifications users, they're way more. Icinga Director will get support for dictionaries. That's more excitement than I had, because it was hard for me to understand it. So the people who were desperately waiting for it are happy, and that is good to see. So what does it mean? The Icinga DSL was able to have dictionary support to do really crazy things, and there are people doing really crazy things with the Icinga DSL. We had no plan that anybody would do that with this, but because it's kind of a language, or it is a language, you can do all the different things. And dictionaries was a long missing feature in Director. And I show you how that works. So if you're familiar with the Director, you know that you have, of course, hosts, service objects, and all the different monitoring things you can configure there. And what is new there are these properties. And these properties, and I go with this example, which is HTTP host. Here you can define different property types, like dynamic dictionaries, like lists, and all the things you can do right now in the DSL, you can do in the future directly in the web interface. So in this example, what I did, we did like a dynamic dictionary, which means at the end that a specific host can have multiple of these arrays, because one host can have multiple virtual hosts of like a blog website, different website one. So this is like a dynamic dictionary because you have multiple of them. They have like a label, and you can add all the fields you want to. I don't do it now, but I think you get the idea on what you can do here. So you can also integrate other arrays into another one. So it's a very modular approach of, if you work in that kind of way with Icinga Director, have modular data. And so what you can do, you have this host, and then we go to a host named web server. This was the example working on. And in customer example, you can work with this dictionary. So if you use the dictionary now, I guess it rings a bell and you know what I'm talking about. If not, it's not a problem. There's a lot of documentation how you can do it already. You can put that in the host template, and to make it clear that the host can have this thing, you can also use the API to fill this data in, but probably you won't do it manually on a larger scale. But that gives you the ability to work with dynamic object types in the Icinga configuration, and now do it in Icinga Director, which is, I guess, a pretty cool feature. Going back here, there's a lot of demo. So there's something which described in detail. I don't go through this with you, but I make a screen record to give you an idea how deeply this is explained. And we go over this, it's 25 seconds. And now I guess you know everything you should know about the dictionary support. Done, that's it. Something for tonight. It's pretty straightforward, I guess, for the users who use dictionaries. It should be really easy to understand and how that works. What's next with this? We plan an Icinga release version 1.12 early next year. Things we have to do is data list and data fields coming the same way. It's currently limited to hosts. We bring it to services as well. The visibility of passwords, which you can now configure if they are visible or not, is something we need to do. And of course, what we need to do before we have it all ready, we need a migration path from data fields to customers, because now you can do a lot of with data fields in Director, and to bring it over to the new object method to have this dictionary support, we need this. Any questions? Whew, thanks God. Not about this. Community contributions. Yeah, if you're using Ansible, NETWAYS was taking over the Ansible collection for Icinga. You can find all the details on GitHub, so if that's something which is interesting for you, definitely take a look. There's a lot of effort going into this, keeping this up to date, testing it. We, however you name it, use it in all the customer installations and trying to work with it, and it's really, really cool. So Ansible collection is something you should look in. Grafana module for Icinga. Who's using this? A lot of people. Okay. Carsten Köpke did this for many, many years. If you don't know, now he lives in the Philippines and he's building a house there. And so Carsten was not really doing a lot of it. And we took over, we talked to Carsten, and because we had to bring all the patches into the Grafana module all the time anyway to make it working properly at the customer side, we now maintain it, or NETWAYS maintains it. There's a release from April this year, and you're always welcome to, of course, make a pull request. If you need something, please interact with NETWAYS at that point, that we can make this better. And another thing, which mainly Markus, I don't know, I'm looking for him, he's over here, did, is the Icinga Web Performance Data Graphs. Anyone knowing this? Some of you, okay. It's a very, I would say, lightweight way to get your time series data into Icinga Web. It's not using any Grafana or something else. It's directly rendered. It uses the same JavaScript library than Grafana does to create these libraries. And it also has support for various backends. Since, I hope I get it right, since today, Elasticsearch backend is in there. Markus did it today. There's backend for Graphite, for InfluxDB version 1 and 2. And it's also really easy to write your own backend support. It's very good documented, so check out the GitHub repo. And it's not built to solve all the graphic problems you have. So if you really would like to dig deeper, create your dashboards, Grafana is definitely the right tool to do it. But to get like a quick overview about your data, it's super easy, very lightweight, and you just can connect to your time series database. So this is really pretty cool. Some learning resources before I come to another point. I think I mentioned the webinars. Webinar, depend on how you see it. This is something which is there for a long time. We are very successful with our webinars on a regular basis, having over 200 people into it. And also being like a regular visitor of our webinars. So take a chance to look at it. We record them, or they record it automatically. You can look at them later on. And we also have something which is Icinga guides, where there are more coming in the next time. For instance, how you can use Netbox and Icinga Director. So it's a very detailed white paper which is explained in a very long version, not just like a small blog post. It's a 20 pages something paper where if you're using Netbox, how to can connect it with Icinga Director. We have a partner, So1, who is doing the Netbox module. And this is pretty cool. Have a look into it. Okay, how we are in time? We have like, yeah, well, what? No. Damn it. Coming to something totally different. This is a cool animation, right? Okay, I mean, Apple AI, whatever. It's not really AI, but who cares? Anybody's doing AI nowadays. But it's something which has really something to do with it. So what we have, and I would like to show it to you now, is that we have a model context provider for Icinga. Who has an idea what a model context provider is? Not so, still a couple of you, okay. So I explain in detail what it is to bring you all on the same page, or at least I try to. Icinga MCP is pretty much a component which connects to the Icinga DB Web API, exposes services which the LLM can understand and query, an LLM which supports tooling, and then you can work with your data in your large language model. It supports MCP standard, which is usually the Anthropic standard, which came out, I guess, in April this year. Supports just standard in and standard out. It supports the standard, but also on top of it, it supports an open API. And it makes your monitoring data accessible to an LLM. But the question is, and I asked you before, who's familiar with all these different AI terms and topics? Not so many. That's perfect, because otherwise my next slides were totally useless. So I try to make it easy what all that stuff is. And I thought it's pretty easy to take an example, a human conversation. So imagine there's something like a brain in the human interaction. To make it a little bit more realistic, there's a person having a conversation, right? And you have a conversation with your partner. So there's partner A and partner B, and partner A has a conversation about the long day at work with partner B in the evening, coming home and telling everything about the day. So that's pretty much what an LLM is this brain. You have the ability, you are pre-trained, you have the language you learned all the whole life in the LLM in a shorter life cycle. And this is responsible for all the linguistic representation about what happens in AI. And before you start that conversation, partner B says to A, hey, listen, I tell you something about this stuff. Then later on, you can write it down in your diary. So of course, you write it down what I tell you from my workday. This is what a prompt is, kind of way. So you talk to LLM and say, hey, I now work with you, and this is what you should do, and this is how I'll give you instruction, how to answer, how to react, in what tonation, what language, what kind of output. This pretty much sets the foundation for the conversation. Another thing is that the conversation could be long, right? It looks like the story never ends, but partner A tries hard to keep up with all the things he learns from partner B. This is context. Somebody's talking to you endlessly, and you say, stop it, stop it. This is your whole context, because in your short-term memory, you're always afraid that the person asks you something about the things you told you, and you already dropped out. And this is another thing. Your short-term memory is in some way exhausted, and partner A makes crystal clear there is no clue to following, and the only way is to say, I understand, this is a context limit, right? The LLM has a context limit. You can put some things in the short-term memory of an LLM, and at some point says, I don't know. I cannot remember everything you talked about me. Then you figure out what was the whole story about, because after lunch you already, you cannot remember, you stop listening. And then something like reasoning comes in place, right? When an LLM decides what is really important, what in that conversation was really important, how we should extract things out of it. And then partner B asks, okay, do you remember the Christmas party? Partner A, weird behavior. And you look like in a photo library because you have no clue what your partner is talking about. This is what pretty much retrieval augmented generation is. The LLM looks up other data sources because it has to look up data which is not trained for or has exclusive information about a specific context. And anything else, I guess every one of you has used ChatGPT. If you upload a PDF and say, summarize it, this is what pretty much retrieval augmented generation is. So the context of the document of the information is given to an LLM as part of the context, and the LLM looks at the data and uses it for a proper answer. And last but not least, at some point partner B said, hey, I'm super thirsty. Can you look if you still have water and bring me some? And this is what MCP is. So MCP is a different thing, and it's super important for understanding. I think whatever this AI bubble will bring us, pretty much it will make us bankrupt and bring us additional 5 degrees Celsius. But it is going to be here to stay, I guess. The main difference is that MCP is more of a concept to have like a real data interaction. So to do something, to execute something, to query some data now, where RAG is pretty much data which is a site. It could be like a handbook, documentation, or more like a static data. Is MCP something which is very dynamic? Now executing a call, query a status of a specific component, for instance. And at the end, the partner summarizes all the deeds writing down in the diary late at night. Again, LLM comes in place, and all this information you get out of the context, you get retrieval augmented generation, MCP. This is pretty much everything you need at the end to give an answer. This is what an LLM does. Could you follow me? Then you're already certified. Because now you know more than 80% of AI specialists out there. You can print it down, I send it to you later. No problem at all, you're welcome. It's free. So to kind of understand in the chain where MCP probably comes in place, and MCP could be also before RAG, because both an LLM context could work without the MCP component. It can also work without the retrieval augmented generation, but it's in somewhere there. So you have an LLM, you have a prompt, you give it a basic context, and out of the first context, the model, which needs to be able to have like a reasoning or tooling support, figures out, hey, there's something I don't know, but there's an interface I could query. And then get the answer through LLM. So what you need for doing Icinga MCP, or pretty much also other MCP providers, you need Icinga MCP server installed, which is pretty straightforward. You need an LLM, which has the ability to use tooling and connect to an MCP server. So what you can do, you can go to OpenAI, you can install your own model if you have the GPU, you can use our very independent partner NETWAYS and use their AI modeling, which I do now in my demo. I use the modeling there because they are the GPUs, and with a local Olama, it's not super fun. But what you need a model provider, even if you have it in-house or use a some way provider somewhere. You need an Icinga DB web to access this from the MCP server because the MCP server gets the data pulled out of it. And you can do pretty much everything on premise if it's fun, depending on how much money you have to buy the GPUs. That's, I would say, more or less the limitation. Anything else you can do. But you can also do local MCP and use a remote LLM. You just have to figure out if your data is important or if your privacy is important. I would highly encourage you, look at the privacy. If you're not having a paying subscription at ChatGPT, everything you have in there is part of their training data. So if you put your love letters in there for instant correction, everything is there. Every training data gets outpulled in the next version of GPT. Just saying, you can disable it when you have a paying subscription, but you have to disable it as well. So everything you put into GPT is used for their training data. Just to bring it up as a sidekick. What I use an Icinga test server. I used the same server which I did the demos before. I use a local Docker installation of OpenWebUI. Who knows OpenWebUI? Some of you. It's kind of a ChatGPT clone, but it can do way more. But the interface looks very similar. I use a shared LLM hosted at AWS. This is what I use, and I have a local Docker installation of my MCP server. And let's see if that works. So first of all, there's a repository, which is GitHub. I can read you Icinga MCP. Okay, so you can download it. It's now public. There's everything in it. So there's the MCP server, there's the HTTP client to connect to Icinga, there's the Open API provider, and there's also a Docker file that you can just pull the repository and start the Docker container. To be fair, I'm the author of that program. I didn't develop a single line of it. This is whole generated. The whole program is just like it took me a long time to get the right prompts together and reprompt it. But no single line of code in there is programmed by hand. I don't know if that qualifies me. At least I'm a super good prompt engineer. But I just want to be honest to you. And also for us now, it's more like we would like to get an idea if that's interesting for our community. Because pretty much everyone is now coming up with an MCP server. And we would like to learn. And this is pretty much for me the goal of that, showing this part to you is it useful? Does it make sense to you? Can you get a bit out of it? And then perhaps we totally put it on another architecture foundation. Could happen. We throw this away. But it is good enough for you to try it out. So let's go back. What you have to do is you pull the repository. You have an environment file. There's an example about this where you can just put in your Icinga web-based URL, your username, your password. You can decide what? So, yeah. Yes. Well, I repeat the question. You don't like the use and the password. I understand it. This is the way the API currently works, like the web API. Exposed to the LLM is not this key. It's just for you to connect to Icinga. Yeah. 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 Yes, but that's the privilege of that user. So you can create an access role on this user. Sure. Yeah, the microphone. Okay, just to wrap it up. The idea behind using the Icinga WebDB APIs that you can create users, create your own roles, limit what they see, and this is exactly what the MCP and what the LLM sees later on, and you can secure this with an API key. But currently, right now, the Icinga WebDB API has no key support, if I get this right. Kind of. Okay. Anyway, coming back, what you have to do at least, you have to fill out the URL, use a password, that's it. And you can configure if you would like to use an authentication via API key or not. You create a Docker file, which is in the README how that works, and start up the Docker container. That's it. The container is working. Looks good. I go to my Docker dashboard because I forgot the port. Hello. And now I see there are 2 containers up and running. It's the Icinga MCP container, which I started like a minute ago, and OpenWebUI. So open this OpenWebUI, which is, if you haven't seen it before, it's an interface which is able to connect to multiple models. You can connect it to a local model like Olama, it's a local provider, or VLLM, or any remote model provider. But in addition to a like very similar ChatGPT interface, you can also upload your own data to do a retrieval augmented generation and also integrate tooling servers, which I've done here. So the configuration is pretty simple. I was thinking about like installing OpenWebUI from scratch, just starting the container, but the demo god, I don't want to overdo it. The only thing I have done in administration, so it's a plain Docker installation of OpenWebUI, is I have defined my connection to the OpenAI API provider, which is the NWS API. And the other thing I have to do is I configure the MCP server. And the MCP server, I don't know if you can see, is just going to the internal Docker host, port 8080. This is like the MCP server I started. And what the MCP server does, it's exposing an OpenAPI JSON. And this is what the LLM understands. So you can have multiple providers and just give this information in OpenAPI JSON to the LLM, and then the LLM should know what's going on. And that's it. We can test the connection if that works. And that's it. So we try our luck, and I make the window, I reduce it a little bit, that you can see what's going to happen here. Because this is the OpenAPI endpoint. So this is the docs, auto-generated Swagger. You can see all the API endpoints Icinga MCP is exposing to the LLM. And this URL is going to be queried, and it should know what's happening. So what I do is I say, okay, what problems do we have? And you see in the background, it queries like the problem host and service endpoints. I don't have to tell the LLM that it has to use these endpoints to get this information. Automatically through the provider, the LLM knows how to call the tooling, right? So I think, okay, there's a problem with Boxer or whatever. Can you see it? Kind of? Okay. Better? So you see like host and service problems here. You can say, okay, show me all services of Boxer. Then it's not going to working because I didn't have a system prompt, which they always use the full qualified domain name. And so you see the call it made is like Boxer, it doesn't work, use FQDN. So the LLM understands that probably I use the full qualified domain name to bring it over. And then you get all the services this host has because it just created the API. And also what I can do is say, okay, I would like to learn more about the history of load last day. Tell me how load was yesterday. Yeah, well, it can take some time. Stop your wireless access. Okay, so you see that it queries the load history and also use the time range day, bringing this up. And the interesting thing, it's not just an interface to show your monitoring data, because you have, of course, Icinga Web, you can also work with it. Calculate the availability. Wir müssen Availability schreiben können. Availability, and nix Habibi. So, and you see again, it's trying to get the data. Even you can say in the morning, it understands what parameter context it should call, query out the data of the MCP server, put in the LLM context. You can also look what's going on. You can see it gets all the events down there. The wireless is not very fast, but if you have a good working connection, it's pretty fast. Now I have to go back to where I started. It will take some time probably, because I need to get all the information out of the API. Pardon? It reads out all the events of this service from this host. Because out of the context, because I didn't mention take load service out of Boxer, because out of the context, it was new in the LLM that it was talking about Boxer. So it automatically knows that it has to query host Boxer and the service load. And because the screen is so high, I can exactly calculate what the load for a specific user was. Poor thing is that the demo data is horrible. Because what we do is like every 5 minutes we go into down and every 5 minutes we go into up. And that's the data what we have, a very static behavior of disk and load checks. But perhaps if you can wrap your mind around it on real production data and with a specific system prompt, it automatically gives you an advice what to do, and you can also work with it. So again, you can say we make a new context, show me host problems. It goes to the MCP server, lists the host endpoint. Then again, Boxer seems to be down. I say recheck Boxer. Hold on. I don't have a system prompt. I want to be fair. Then it gets the status again, and now the host is up because it's just like a demo data and it's checking again. Also, I can do is, I would say, I don't know, first 3 host problems. Acknowledge on host Arsenal. Ich bin dran. And then you see there's our Arsenal host. It created that comment, or to be back in German. And the acknowledgement should be removed. So now it's removed. And I hope you get the idea behind it. And what you can do means imagine this on your data. And imagine this, you have MCP tooling for other stuff. So look up a server, is it down? Tell me which is the property owner. Look up the CMDB and tell me who's the responsible person. Look up the documentation. So it's I'm kind of impressed what AI can do nowadays. I'm not impressed by everything, which is a great feature. But working on your data, you can also plot, you can create graphs on it. So you can just create your Python code and get a specific trend graph out of it. You can calculate it. You get an error resolution succession. And you can work with the other data. And if you bring other tooling into your LLM context, you can glue the data together. And that way you really have an advantage out of it, I guess. Yes, I take the microphone because just we don't have it on the camera.
Thank you. Can it perform root case analysis? So, I mean, I can ask why a service or a host is down, and it can answer me because the parent host or because of other cause is down.
I don't know. Well, we figure it out.
I don't take any responsibility.
What would you like to type me in? What should I type in? What are you looking for? Because I should analyze a host. That was your question. Did I get it right?
Why it is down? Because if he has some kind of parent, and if he is down because his parent is down.
You mean the reason why it's down?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I don't know. I think the demo data will not give a very good example. Now we get everything. I get the comments. I don't even see it. Yeah, means, what did you expect, right? Exactly. Honestly, because I tried it with the real Icinga monitoring, then you have a totally different data because it can really analyze over short-term data. It can give you an idea, means a ping critical, well, it's not so hard, but it gives you, of course, the detail, what it knows about it. You can also query something, but of course, it's very limited to the data it has, but as more, the problem is you can provide a lot of data to the LLM. At some point, you get a context exhaustion, you get a context problem because you cannot put like 10 days of metrics into it. But yes, if you have a good production-ready data, you can just work with it and analyze the data. And it works pretty solid. Okay. Any other questions? No. Fine. So what's next here? You can download it. So please do us a favor if you want to, give it a try. Secure it with an API key, which I did not in my demo because everything is working on my local host. It's super experimental, but we would like to learn if that's by far interesting to you. Can you imagine using this in your use case? Who's using LLM for like infrastructure management tooling already? I'm not talking about typing your mistakes to ChatGPT. So some of you. Means I don't know how far this train is gonna bring us, but I think we see a lot of tooling already, and I guess we as an industry have to wrap our mind around what it's gonna left, and perhaps like generating pictures is super funny but not so helpful. But bringing your data in a good LLM context, I guess it could be valuable, specifically if the people are working with the data are not specialists, right? Because in an Icinga web person who knows exactly who to look for, how to put a comment. But this agent you can give to someone who has no idea how that works. You can say, show me the problems, give a comment, acknowledge it, recheck at list service, give me the history, give me an explanation of that error, and perhaps give me an advice. Is perhaps not for the super senior principal admin, not a required feature, but for someone who is like just able and want to deal with some data and has no clue in which backend it is, it could be helpful. So I think there is a future with this, and play around with it. It's straightforward, takes you 2 minutes to bring it up. If you don't have an LLM provider, are you already installing? I guess. If you don't have an LLM provider, go with NETWAYS, go with a lot of public LLM providers out there, use OpenAI, but perhaps not with real data. I would highly encourage not to do so. Feedback is very welcome. So what's next? 3 more minutes. What's next? Notification channels is something we are coming up in notifications. Single sign-on. In Icinga Web, it's in the final stages that we have this. Also, two-factor authentication for Icinga Web is coming with this. Yeah, this is the excitement I want to hear. Yeah, two-factor, yeah. I guess we had this question before about like favoring something. I don't know which direction the question was, that we're gonna do and redo the dashboards. So the dashboards right now give the flexibility to insert your user queries to visualize the data, but we can do more. It's a long time on your list that you can drag and drop. You share them, collaboration with the dashboards with colleagues using the database is interesting. And another thing that we plan to take the Linux Fabrics plugins and ship it as a standard with Icinga in the next year. That you get, I don't know if you know the Linux Fabric public monitoring plugin collection. It's very solid. They maintain it really quite well, put a lot of effort into quality. And for sure, it will make it easier for users, especially if you enter Icinga and enter a monitoring tool, you get all this shipped with you, perhaps having pre-configured templates with this, making it way more easier to enter the Icinga world. And with that, I thank you. Thanks to everyone at Icinga for making everything possible that I can present it, because I only can present it because other people are doing the hard work behind it. And thank you very much. I hope you have a great evening. Coming up, we leave in about an hour or so, so 6:45. Thank you, and if you have any questions, I'm happy to. I don't want to overstretch your time. Thank you very much. Are there any questions left? Okay, I see a thing we call Bierdurst. Flo, yeah. Let's talk later on. Have a good night. Thank you.